This week on the 302, we're serving up drama and delicious dishes. The Candlelight Theater is celebrating its 50th birthday. But there's so much more to this historic site than playbills and platters. Grab your appetite for intrigue. The 302 is headed your way. Hey 302, I'm Jackie Ferris. This week we're at the Candlelight Theater and we're talking about 50 years, an anniversary that they're celebrating in grand fashion. I'm joined now by Jerry, who is a volunteer and an actress. Jerry, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about the history. This is not just a dinner theater where you can see drama and delicious dishes. It goes all the way back.
This actually used to be a real barn, and it still has the feel of a barn, which is so wonderful. But back in the 1890s, it was an actual barn on a working farm called the Harvey Farm, and this was called the Harvey Barn. It became part of the town of Ardentown in around 1920. The land here, as well as with another farm, became incorporated as the town of Ardentown. And in the 20s, this actually became like a little tea room. And somebody who started the tea room gave it the name of the Robin Hood Barn, just from an old saying of, something about riding around the Robin Hood Barn or something like that. But then it became a theater in 1931. There was a gentleman by the name of Edwin Ross who was, his family was very involved with this whole arts community here. And he also was a performer in New York before he started this as a theater in 1931, as well as afterwards. And it became one of the oldest summer stock theaters in the country. It was called Robin Hood Theater. As I said, it started performing shows in 1931. And the heyday of the Robin Hood Theater is probably like from 1948 to 1953, when stars of stage, screen, and Broadway came through here and performed here. People like Jack Klugman, Anthony Perkins, Barbara Bel Geddes, Broadway stars, and it was a super popular theater at that time. In fact, something that was really neat was that Arthur Miller, the playwright, actually came here in 1953 to direct one of his productions, All My Sons. Oh, nice. So it continued performing, but then the industry, I think, started to sort of die down a little bit. And when the 60s rolled around, it just was kind of it was a lull. Right, it was a lull.
How did it go from Robin Hood to Candlelight?
Well, it kind of went through this period in the 60s where somebody leased the building to start to show movies here, and they painted the whole inside black, even the windows. They installed, a bunch of seats that were bolted to the floor. So they were showing movies, and then at one point, I think a local high school did a production here. And it was, I think, just falling into disrepair. So John O'Toole, his wife Lena, Julian Boris, and his wife Annabelle, who we refer to as our founders, went through a massive renovation of this place with hordes of volunteers, worked tirelessly through mid-1969 into the fall. And Candlelight, it was called at the time, Candlelight Music Theater, premiered November 28, 1969, with a production of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. There was actually a restaurant downstairs that catered the dinner up here. And it actually, as it is today, it looks very similar to what it looked like in 1969. There wasn't a lobby out front at that time. That came a couple of years later. Since then, it's gone through several stages of more renovations, but it has essentially kept the same wonderful, rustic, intimate feel that it had in 1969.
Yeah, you can really feel, like when you come, it's going to be a really great night. So what happens when you come here?
As a patron?
As a patron.
When you come here, the doors open for an evening show. We also do some matinees, but if it's an evening show, the doors open at 6 o'clock. The audience members come in and they take their seats. What's another really awesome thing about this place, and it's kind of unique, I think, is that our cast members are the servers. They double as the servers, and the audience loves it. And the founders actually started that from the very beginning. We still do it. And from 6 o'clock to 7:30-ish, at their leisure, people get up and they go through the buffet lines many times as they want, and it's just a really wonderful, fun feel for those couple of hours. There's some announcements that happen like around 7:15, and then the show goes up at 8 o'clock, and people sit in their same seats, where they have dinner. They stay there and they watch the show, and
enjoy a great evening of good food and some great
And what's
theater.
fun is at intermission, the cast members will come out, but they'll be in their full costume. They're not in their costume prior to the show starting, but at intermission they all come out, and then at that point the audience members have seen them in the show, and it's really fun and
very
exciting.
interactive.
Yeah.
Jerry, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to
You're
learn
welcome.
more about the Candlelight Theater in just a moment.
I'm Brent, and the Brandywine Zoo loves the 302.
Welcome back. We're joined now by Bob, who is the artistic director. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, tell me a little bit about where you find the actors for all the productions you put on here at the Candlelight Theater.
Okay, well, I came in 2012, and I'm not sure what their process was before, but we have auditions. One audition in Philadelphia, and then 2 auditions at this theater. And generally, the people will come from the entire tri-state area to audition. And we usually average anywhere between 100 and 120 people at the auditions. We've gotten some terrific talent come in, and a lot of new talent, which is a thing that we've been pushing for, so that the audience is not seeing the same people all the time. We've done the same thing with a production staff too, directors, musical directors, choreographers. So we've really opened up the ability for a lot of people in the tri-state area to work here, where in the past that might have been a little more difficult.
And I would imagine that in bringing in new talent, that it's a good place to really, do something in front of a live audience, which is vastly different than doing something for film. Right?
Oh, it sure is. It is a huge difference, because in most theaters, especially if you take the larger theaters like Walnut Street or the Orden or something like that, their houses are big enough that you have to then play a little bit broader. The nice thing here, this is actually a wonderful theater as a training ground for film because of the intimacy. Since it's only a 150-seat theater, no matter where you sit here, you have a very good seat, and you can see facial expressions that maybe get lost at the Forest, at the Academy of Music. And so the actors have the opportunity to really do smaller acting, which is much more akin to working on film.
So whenever you're putting together your season, how do you decide what kinds of things you're going to put on for your audience?
It is the biggest stress I have the entire year, because what we choose, if I'm wrong, then that puts the theater in a precarious situation since we're a nonprofit. And take this year, for example, I applied for maybe 20 shows. The season I had planned on doing metamorphosed into an entirely different season because I couldn't get some of the shows that I really thought I would be able to get. And so I had to completely change tacks and go in a different direction. I thought we wound up with a great season, but it wasn't. It's always usually not the one you start out trying to get.
Now, is there a formula? Do you do musicals? Is it dramatic? I mean, do we see Shakespeare, things like that? What do you see here when you come?
We haven't gotten to the point where I thought Shakespeare would sell yet. This was primarily, and still is, primarily a musical house, and they were doing almost only musicals back in John and Lena's time in 1969 when this theater opened as the Candlelight Theater. And pretty much continued as that. When I came in, I'm a huge fan of straight plays, and as an actor, I've acted in a lot of them. So I brought in Driving Miss Daisy, I brought in The Odd Couple, I brought in straight plays as a sideshow to the main stage schedule, and we only ran them 2 weekends. And there was enough interest in that and enjoyment of that that I decided that this theater was ready to put a straight show on the main stage schedule. So instead of doing 6 musicals a year, we do 5. And then to accommodate the fact that there might be some people who don't like straight plays, then we added a 5-show season pass as well as a 6 show. So if there was one show in the season that you've seen a million times, like Fiddler on the Roof, or where you don't want to see a straight show, then you could save money by just buying a 5-show pass.
So I can imagine if you have the 6 shows, then maybe you have an extra show that you bring in or out. I mean, that's a lot of coordinating of people, and if you got one that's practicing and one that's actually showing, is that how it works?
That's how it works. And this is easier than if you go to summer stock where you're doing 2-week shows. You're performing 6 nights a week and then you're rehearsing all day for the following show. So this is not that difficult, but usually most rehearsals for, let's say, Catch Me If You Can, is rehearsing while South Pacific is running. And the real difficulty is you have some people that move from South Pacific to the next show. So they're doing one, they're rehearsing another, and a lot of them have full-time jobs. So it's a lot of time and effort from these people. They work incredibly hard. The great thing about this place, which people would really be surprised at, is regardless of the difficulties of the stage itself, the ability to transform that stage from one show to the next and put you in the place of that particular show it does amazingly well here, much better than I think most people would expect based on the venue that we're in.
Talk to me about the 2020 season.
Yeah, so we're going to open next year with Cabaret, which is one of the great classics of the American theater. We're following that with Something's Afoot, which was a London and Broadway show. David Hyde Pierce actually did the lead in that on Broadway. It's a wonderful musical mystery murder comedy kind of thing. We're following that with Rumors, which is a Neil Simon play. And then the summer show is Sweet Charity, which is one of the old classics and one of the great female characters ever written for Broadway, which is also a book by Neil Simon. In the fall, we're doing Memphis, which is based on the true story of a disc jockey down south who was pretty much the first person in the country to bring black artists into the mainstream and put their music on the radio. And this is the story. It's a wonderful story, very inspiring. And then we end with Scrooge, which is based on the movie with Albert Finney, and it has a great score that was nominated for an Academy Award.
It sounds like 2020 is going to be amazing for you guys.
I think it's going to chalk up to be actually a better season than maybe what I had originally planned to do.
Bob, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
We'll be right back.
I'm Ray Jones Avery, #the 302.
Welcome back. We're here at the Candlelight Theater, and we're joined now by George, who is the vice president of the board. George, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, it's great to have you guys here. We're thrilled that you're broadcasting from Candlelight Theater.
Well, talk to us a little bit about the names that have come through here. You guys have a Hall of Fame, is that right?
We do have a Hall of Fame. In fact, this year we're celebrating the Hall of Fame, and the Hall of Fame for Candlelight Theater is all of the amazing people who have worked for years to keep the theater, a barn in the middle of Delaware, thriving in the way it has. Theaters go up and down, but of the hard work that some people put in to lead the way is worth remembering. And so this year we're going to honor Hall of Fame members of our cast. One member you just met, right? Bob. He's a Hall of Famer. He is going to be honored this year, along with the original music director, right? Some of the original patron who helped us in the troubled times, and some of the performers who have made their way to the stage. So we're going to honor them and celebrate them to make sure that everybody remembers the amazing contributions that these folks created.
So there's a lot of momentum. You talk to people from the Candlelight Theater and they talk about, just the atmosphere. Talk to me about the momentum.
We in the last 3 years have set records for the number of tickets we've sold at Candlelight Theater. People are coming to Candlelight Theater, whether they're young or they're old, or they're new to theater or have been following theater their whole life. And they sit in this amazing barn. And so with ticket sales, it only comes because you had a young staff who's working hard to put together the shows, to make sure everything behind the scene works, to make the delicious food that they serve every day. And then a board that has revitalized its role to work with the staff and bring in expertise and talent to help the theater mature and grow. And so right now, we're having a banner year on top of last year's banner year, and we expect great things in the future. That's one of the things that we're celebrating when we celebrate 50 years of being in the community.
So I can imagine that's probably a pretty happy place to be all year round, with the many shows that cycle through. But what's ahead in the future for Candlelight Theater?
Okay, so in the future, Candlelight Theater has an amazing set of shows that you've already talked about for this year. But what's coming next is that Candlelight Theater is going to reach out into the community and give back, because the founders created Candlelight with the vision that live theater could tell amazing stories and make us a better community. Make us laugh, teach us to cry, help us be sensitive to the issues that are in our community. And theater has done amazing things to do that. Well, in the next year, we're going to take that, we're going to celebrate that and get it ready for the next 50 years. So we're going to continue doing those amazing stories and create shows, but we're also going to do something special this year. We're going to start a series of master classes where we teach the next group of young performers, right? Whether they be in high school and very talented, or college and very committed, or young professionals trying to sharpen their craft. We're going to teach those acting skills and those dance skills and those performing skills to the next generation of actors and performers and crew to make sure the productions work well, right? With the people who are in the theater here, but also people coming out of New York City who have been on Broadway, may have been nominated for a Tony Award. We have one Tony Award winner coming as well. And they're going to use the theater here on Saturday morning to teach those skills to ambitious young performers with a little bit of talent, and see if we can sharpen their skills and let them carry this tradition forward of making live theater something special.
It's a great way to engage the community.
We think it's giving to the community and inviting back, right? All the people who have benefited from theater to help make sure that the next generation of theater people love theater as much as we do, whether it's just the craft or sitting in the audience and loving the show.
So if someone wants to know more about the master classes or what's on the stage or what's for dinner, where do they go?
We have a website that has all the information that you need, right? If you go to www.candlelighttheater.delaware, right, you'll see all the information about the upcoming shows, the upcoming master classes, the upcoming events, all the things that are happening in the air at Candlelight Theater. We invite you to come see it. Follow us on Facebook. We have a Facebook post that go out about every other day, right? We have an email that goes out, right? And so there's lots of ways for you to figure out what's going to happen next at Candlelight.
Well, George, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you for having us. And we invite you all to come out and visit. We're looking forward to seeing you at Candlelight Theater.
And we'll be right back. That'll do it for this episode of the 302. For more information on what's being served up at the Candlelight Theater, visit candlelighttheaterdelaware.com. Until next time, I'm Jackie Ferris. We'll see you on the 302.